Hi, my name's Mick and this is the Keep Moving page. I'd like to explore this idea of keep moving, but in relation to weight. I know when I used to be quite big, I knew I should be moving, but just the act of being big made it really uncomfortable and not an enjoyable experience. And so I knew before I could start moving, I had to try and get to a more comfortable weight. In the early days, I used to be about 23 stone, my BMI was about 46. I then managed to get that down through a combination of diet and movement to a BMI of about 27, I think it was. And then I got stuck. And no matter what I did, I just couldn't quite get to that BMI that I needed to get to that was a healthy BMI. And at the start of lockdown, I decided to make use of lockdown. And one of the questions I asked myself is, what is my relationship with food? And I decided to shift from focusing on what I ate and to ask questions as why I was eating. Why was I putting things in my mouth? And from that came the mouth model, and it's making the eating process more conscious. And the idea behind the mouth model is to make every mouthful a conscious mouthful. So the mouth model is M-O-U-T-H. And the M, the first part of the mouth model, is mood. And this is an emotional component. And the reality is that food is emotion very often. Whether we're given sweets as a reward, whether it's sitting with our parents and having food, emotion forms a very, very big part of the food relationship for a lot of people. And you can look at emotion within two avenues. There's good emotion and bad emotion, where we feel good, we feel bad, and there's the intensity, where it's very high intensity, very low intensity. So for example, if you've got a very low intensity but low emotion or sad emotion, that can be very sad. And there's food associated with sadness, and I know that, we can crave certain foods. We can move along the spectrum and have a very happy, positive emotion that is still very low energy, and that's serene. I think that's where it's a Sunday afternoon, you're sitting and chilling, watching Netflix, and you might have some popcorn and you just chill with some food. With popcorn, obviously the hand goes in, the hand goes in, the hand goes in, all of a sudden you've done 1,000 calories. So there's an association there. Certainly you can have a negative emotion that is very intense, and that's the stressed. For me, it's sugar. Stress equals sugar. There's an automatic response, and I had to start to learn to recognise that. And then you've got a very positive emotion, which is a very intense emotion, and that's very stimulated, and that's food that is associated with high energy, with happiness, with celebration. It can be parties, and we just eat and without even thinking about it. So all of a sudden, food and emotion are actually very intertwined. And one of the ways to explore this is to ask yourself a number of questions. Do you use food to enhance pleasure? Can you recognise, in terms of how you eat, that food is a pleasurable process? And so can it become part of a craving? Do you use food to avoid pain? If there's an upset, will you turn to food to try and mitigate some of that pain? Does eating food cause guilt or anxiety? And so again, the emotion becomes linked in with the food. And I guess for me, when I started out, I wanted to ask myself the question, what is my relationship with food? And an important part of that is to ask the question, what is my emotional relationship with food? And the more I've been tracking this over lockdown, I've found a massive relationship with food, and it's something I'm still trying to address is how do I start to manage that? Because if I'm driven by my emotions with eating, then I'm not control. It's not a conscious process. The emotions are taking control and I'm out of control. The second part in the mouth model, so we've got the M is the mood, the O is the others. And if you go back to childhood, food is very often associated with other people. It can be in terms of a celebration where we're eating with them, and there can be a tendency to follow a pattern of eating the amount that other people are eating. Very often there can be a pressure to eat. Very often people will put food in front of you and expect you to eat it, and you don't want to not clear the plate. very often if we're overweight, someone will say, well, you don't need to lose weight, you just got big bones. And so we feel pressure to conform. And so this notion of the relationship with people and food I've found really interesting. And certainly with lockdown, because I've not been able to be with people, I've had far more control. And the times I've fallen off the wagon, if I've been with people when the lockdown's been taken off, and all of a sudden I'm conforming to other people's norms to a degree. And I think that's been a real interesting learning point for me, is that when I have total control over the process and I'm not got that relationship with other people, actually I'm far more successful with the management of food. So that's the O. So we've had the M and the O. The U is the unconscious things we do. These are the little habits and things we do without even realising. We might walk in the door after work and there's a plate of chips and the hand just goes out and we take them. We can be in situations where the biscuits are going around and someone offers you a biscuit and the hand just goes out. You don't have no idea what happens. This hand goes out, it's like a horror film, takes the biscuit and puts it in your mouth. And it's not a conscious thought, it's an unconscious process. And again, what I've noticed with lockdown is the sheer number of unconscious processes that happen that put calories into my mouth that I wasn't even aware of. And so part of the process of using the mouth model is to start to question, what are these unconscious habits, these things that I do without even realising, and just start to question them. Now, it doesn't mean they're bad, but it's about making a conscious choice. So we've got the M is for the mood, the emotion. We've got the O is for, well, what's my relationship with other people in terms of food? And the U is the unconscious. What are the habits and processes that I go through without even realising it to put these calories into my mouth? So we've got the M, the O, the U and the T. And the T is taste. And the big thing for me with taste is the three things of sugar, salt and fat. And taking each one of those, sugar is an incredibly powerful process in terms of creating moreness. And if you give a young baby just a taste of sugar, immediately they crave it and they want more, and they will choose it over non-sugar based food and drink. And the impact of sugar on the brain is it fires the brain. It hits the same centres of the brain that cocaine does and sex does and all of these things. It's an incredibly powerful food. I don't think it's been fully categorised as addictive yet, but it creates an addictive-like tendency. So it can be a massive craving, and I know that I'm trying to bring myself off of that sugar craving or sugar addiction, and it's hard. It's really, really hard, and I have to pay careful attention to it. The next one is salt. And I love the TV shows when the chefs keep saying, well, it needs more seasoning, it needs more seasoning. Why? It's nice food, but we have this obsession with salt. And salt is fascinating because it really enhances and brings out a lot of the flavours. And so it sucks us in. And so there is this tendency, I've shifted to having hard-boiled eggs without salt, and that was really, really, really hard. And I still want to dip it in, I'm still desperate to put a bit of salt on, but I don't need it. It doesn't need salt. And once I get used to them without salt, they're fine. And when I do have salt now, it really causes me to react, because although we're predisposed to love sugar, we're not predisposed to love salt. It's something we're taught from a very young age. The craving is created at a young age. Fat is an interesting one because there's no actual sort of taste for fat as such, but it's that wholesome. It's that wholesome sense of giving us something. If you think of cheese, that feeling that cheese gives, and it's warming, it's loving, and it pulls us in. If you want to explore the idea of sugar, salt and fat, then look at the Humble Crisp. It's engineered to create you to want the second crisp, the third crisp, the fourth crisp, the next packet, the jumbo packet. It's a perfectly formed machine to create want, to create craving, to pull us in. It's incredibly powerful, and lots of money is spent on creating this bliss point. So we've got the mood, we've got others, we've got the unconscious processes, we've got the taste, and the third one is the H, which is the hunger. And that's an interesting one. How often do I say I'm starving? And I've never been starving in my life. If I was really truthful, I've never ever been starving. I've been peckish, I've been hungry, but starving is a word that we use very easily. And what we need to do is to recalibrate. And the calibration I use is 1 to 5, where a level 1 is truly hungry, head down the bin outside to try and find some old sweets or crisps. Level 2 is a natural hunger. Level 3 is I'm satisfied, but like a car that's half full of petrol, within an hour or so I'd be starting to get hungry again. Level 4 is I'm full, I've had sufficient to eat, and level 5 is the post-Christmas dinner when I'm pigged out, I'm stuffed, it's awful and I'm bloated. And what I'm going to do is to calibrate what my body is telling me on those 5s. Ideally, I work on the basis of never get to level 1 where I'm absolutely starving because then I make bad choices that are not rational. Never get to level 5 because that's just an awful feeling that is not good for the body. And so in using the mouth model of the mood, the others, the unconscious, the taste and the hunger, I use it now as a conscious consumption. It's about whatever goes in my mouth, I should be making a conscious choice. Nothing should ever go in without thinking about it. To try and train myself to take control and make choices about eating as opposed to it just happening. And so how I use the mouth model is very simply, whenever I'm going to eat, is to ask the question, am I doing this emotionally? Am I doing it because of other people? Am I doing it unconsciously? Am I doing it because of a craving for sugar, salt or fat? Or am I telling myself I'm hungry when I'm not? If I can't pass those tests, then it shouldn't be going in my mouth. So good luck with your journey. I know it's hard. From personal experience, it's incredibly hard. But I do believe, and I've experienced the huge benefit of conscious consumption, of knowingly putting things in my mouth, as opposed to it just happening. So good luck. Thank you.